fighter has the highest fight IQ?
I don't think there's nobody in the game that has the fight IQ that I have.
Off the charts.
His fucking IQ.
The highest fight IQ maybe ever.
This guy hits hard. He's tough. He's this, he's that. And this guy has a dream. But my fight IQ will win this fight.
UFC's bantamweight division is in absolute shambles right now. But don't worry. Payton Talbott is here to save us. And I have proof that it's going to happen sooner than you think. Let's take a quick look at the bantamweight division. Sadly, Merab is champion, who won't be defending his belt for another year, it looks like. Strip him. We thought Umar was going to fight Song Yadong because he wanted to get a fight in the meantime. That fight fell through. The only good matchup we have at bantamweight right now is Peter Yan versus Davison Figueiredo, which is a good matchup, don't get me wrong. But I right after Merab beat Sean, I said immediately, why are you not booking Figgy versus Umar for the number one contender? Figgy was ready to fight. Umar was ready to fight. Why would we do any other fight? Let's move down a little bit. All these players down here, clearly not in title contention right now. Jose Aldo, maybe if the judges gave him that fight against Bautista, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But realistically, nobody down here is in the title title contention at the moment. That's not to say there's not good fighters and good matchups happening at the bottom of the division, but with title implications, I don't see anyone down here below Figgy really being able to make any good shot at the title. Payton Talbott, yet to break the top 15. However, Umar was not here a very short time ago. And I'm about to show you that the UFC has plans to make Payton Talbott champion by the end of 2025. Let's go and look at Umar Nurmagomedov real quick. By the way, 18-0, you only got 2 wins by KO TKO. You can do better than that. Let's go back to when he made his UFC debut. Sergey Morozov, rear naked choke, round 2. Okay, cool. Umar Nurmagomedov carrying the family name by getting a finish by submission in his UFC debut. Great. Then he goes up to fight Brian Kelleher. Submits him as well a little bit earlier. Okay, things are looking good. Brian Kelleher is someone that at the time everyone knows his name, but not the strongest opponent. But he did finish him in round 1 like he should have. Going up a little further, Nate Maness. Nate Maness is a good fighter. You know, I'm not going to sit here and shit on Nate Maness because he is good. At the time, 14-1 when he fought Nurmagomedov. Since then, I think he's lost every fight. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I remember him losing every fight since losing to Nurmagomedov. Now, here's when things start to get interesting. I'm going to jump over to Payton Talbott's. Show him real quick. Boom. Payton Talbott's first 3 fights in the UFC. Nick Aguirre. Not a bad fighter. Rear naked chokes him in round 3. Finish in the first fight. Now, they give him a really, really good opponent in Cameron Simon on his second fight in the UFC. People were thinking that Cameron Simon was going to be a prospect in the UFC that was going to rise pretty quickly. I mean, he was 9-1 when they fought. If you watch that fight, that was an absolute domination. Cameron Simon had absolutely nothing for Payton Talbott. Payton Talbott clearly better on the feet, clearly more power. Cameron Simon is good. He's slick. You know, he's got good kickboxing. He's got good footwork. But the power of Talbott just overtook that fight. And Cameron quickly started to wear the damage and ended up getting finished in the beginning of round 2. Then they give him Giannis Gamori. Now, say what you want about Giannis Gamori. He wasn't a can. Cans aren't 12-2, okay? Maybe he not the greatest fighter we're going to see in the UFC. Maybe a good matchup for Talbot in retrospect. But 12-2 is no can. Knocks him out in 19 seconds. Now, we all just saw that he is now scheduled to fight Raoni Barcelos, who is not a can either. This is a step up in competition for Payton Talbot. He's a little old, but Raoni Barcelos, we're gonna go over his record a little bit. No can. 18-5 currently. Hasn't done the best in the UFC, but this is a step up in competition. Raoni Barcelos has a ton of experience, not just at bantamweight. He has wins at heavier weight classes. He's a little bit old, so not in his prime, but good fighter. Good fighter. And just to prove that to you, I'm going to bounce over to his Tapology real quick. Now, 37 years of age. Not great, but we've seen 37-year-olds do well in the UFC sometimes. 44% of wins by finish. 44% of wins by KO TKO. 17% of wins by submission. So we're looking at 61% of his wins coming by way of finish. Here we got the Payton Talbot matchup upcoming. Now, Barcelos was coming off a win against Christian Quinones, who's big for the division, good striker, powerful hands, which is kind of what we're looking at with Payton Talbot. He's kind of bigger for the division, powerful hands, and Barcelos subbed him. I kind of forget how this fight. I'll be honest with you. I forget how this fight was going before this submission came in round 3. And now, this is why I bring this up. Because if we're looking at the trajectory of Payton Talbot's career, 3 finishes in his first 3 fights in the UFC, now he's getting matched up with Raoni Barcelos. If we look at Umar Nurmagomedov, 2 finishes and a decision. I mean, taking Nate Maness to a decision, whatever, say what you will about it. But 3 wins in the UFC. Then they matched him up against Raoni Barcelos. Now, since then, he's got a win over a can. You know what? I'm trying to make a point here, but I'll be a little more genuine than that. Almakhan was not a can. 11-1, not can material. However, short notice fight, very short notice fight, UFC debut. When you got a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov with the name that he has, coming off 3 wins in the UFC, 4 wins in the UFC, and then you're giving him short notice Almakhan making his debut, not the best matchup they could have made at a time. Unless they're just trying to get Nurmagomedov wins, which, with Nurmagomedov's, they tend to not take the easy route, but they get favorable matchups. Let's be honest. Then they gave Umar a real test in Corey Sandhagen. That was a close fight in the respect that Umar didn't do any significant damage to Corey. It was a dominant win, though. He clearly beat Corey there. Then, like I said, I guess he was looking to get a grappling fight because the Song Yadong fight fell through. But here we are at the Raoni Barcelos matchup. Now, I think Payton Talbot is going to get it done pretty handily, and I wouldn't be surprised if afterwards they went straight to here. Not Corey Sandhagen. I have another fighter in mind that I think they're going to give him. But I wouldn't be surprised if they skipped a 5th matchup and just gave his Payton Talbot's 5th fight in the UFC to a guy in the rankings who, has been around title talks, actually has had a title shot somewhat recently. But I think that's the plan for the UFC. For Payton Talbot from the UFC. I think he's going to beat Raoni Barcelos pretty handily, and then I think they're just going to go straight to a Corey Sandhagen-like opponent. I don't think it's going to be Corey Sandhagen. I think that'd be a little too obvious of what they're trying to do. What I think they're going to do, let me go back to the rankings here. If Chito Vera does not fight between now and, let's say, June or July of 2025, which he took a lot of damage in that Sean O'Malley fight, it would serve him well to take a good amount of time off. Maybe not a year, but I think June, July would be around that year mark for Chito. I think at that time, granted that Payton Talbot handles Raoni Barcelos in a dominant fashion, I think they are going to give him Chito Vera after that. I think he's going to jump all these guys. Maybe even the Jose Aldo matchup they might give him if Jose gets a win between now and then. Although he did beat Mario Batista. But I think the matchup they're going to do in the future is Chito versus Payton Talbot. Not only would it be an extremely exciting fight, we all know that. Chito is very, very hard to finish. Payton Talbot finishing everybody. I think they're very, very similar style fighters, if I'm being quite honest with you. They're a little big for the division. They're well-rounded. They have power in their hands. We see what happens when Chito lands on people. It's not good. In that Rob Font fight, Chito was getting outstruck like crazy, but the damage that Rob Font was wearing on his face was absolutely crazy. So power for power, they could match each other potentially. I think that is what they're going to do. And personally, I think even if say the Barcelos matchup was not made, and say the news instead was Payton Talbot versus Chito Vera, we'd be like, whoa, that's a big jump, but it kind of makes sense. Umar Nurmagomedov didn't beat a single top 15 ranked opponent and then got Corey Sandhagen. When we're talking about ridiculous jumps in the division, Payton Talbot fighting Chito Vera would not be that crazy when you consider they gave Umar the Corey Sandhagen matchup when they did. If I had to guess, this is exactly what's going to happen. Now, granted, Payton Talbot needs to get past Raoni Barcelos, which we're going to look past these losses because I'm trying to make a point here. Beat 13-2 Khalid Taha, beat Said Nurmagomedov, who is a legit prospect in the division. Let's go down here because it gets more impressive. Chris Gutierrez, rear naked choked Chris Gutierrez. Now, granted, this was back in 2018, but Chris Gutierrez at the time was a young gun coming up the division. And Raoni Barcelos choked him out in round 2. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. Knocks out Kurt Hollabaugh. Kurt Hollabaugh, you're thinking of the same Kurt Hollabaugh that I am. Current lightweight Kurt Hollabaugh. The Ultimate Fighter winner, Kurt Hollabaugh. Yeah, Raoni Barcelos finished him in 2018. Now, I bring these up to say to you, decision over Trevin Jones. Like I said, we're going to ignore those losses because I'm trying to make a point here. Those wins are wins that you only get if you are excuse me. Those wins are wins that only people who are legit fighters get. A current bantamweight getting a win over a current lightweight, a current bantamweight getting a win over Chris Gutierrez and Said Nurmagomedov, this is a legit guy. They're not giving this matchup to Payton Talbot And they didn't give this matchup to Umar because they thought it would be an easy win. They're giving these matchups against Raoni Barcelos because they know that the MMA community will respect a fighter after a win over Raoni Barcelos. So I'm going to tell y'all again. He's going to beat Raoni Barcelos. They're going to immediately give him Chito Vera. Come back to this video after they announce the Chito Vera matchup in probably July of 2025. This is what's going to happen. Payton Talbott is going to save the division. He's going to get a title shot in November or December of 2025. I could see him fighting in November on the MSG card in 2025. There it is. There it is, folks. That's how Payton Talbott saves the division. You heard it here. Adios.